that are working hard. So this is where you get your money to work hard for you.
Baby, so here's the deal. I'm just going to go off of that and riff for a second, and then I'll turn it right back over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you can work for your money, or you can have your money work for you. That's not original.
So Steve.
Well, good day, Steve.
Well, hello, Steve.
Welcome, folks, to the Steve and Steve Show. Hope you had a wonderful week. Can you believe it's a whole week? It's gone.
It is. It's
time's flying.
Went by very fast.
Wow.
Very fast.
And we're now up to a lot of these, and it's crazy how fast the time is going. But hey, tempus fugit. Right? Time flies. Right? And let's not go into Latin. I have something a little new today. Again, we're not pitching Martinelli's. It just happens to be the cider that I have. But this is apple cider. I thought you might like a little bit of healthy. There's no sugar or anything like that other than what's in the apples, which is natural, probably a fair amount of fructose, right? But very quick little story before we get going. This looks like beer, right? If I had poured it beforehand, we could have said it was beer, but it's not. It's apple cider. When I was a kid, grew up in Boulder, Colorado, we used to go drive along the foothills to this little town called Lyons, Colorado. And there was this little cider place right at the entrance to Lyon. It was something like Martinelli's. It's not that. It was like, I can't remember the name, but Italian. And man, was that ever whenever we were going to go up to Estes or someplace, we'd stop at that little cider place. And they had a variety of ciders there, from black cherry to boysenberry to apple to cherry, peach, every kind of cider you could think of. I just wanted to tell you that was a really cool little breadcrumb of my childhood.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Down in Arizona, not when I was growing up, but we had when our kids were younger. There's this place in Wilcox, Arizona, and it's called Apple Annie's.
Apple Annie's.
Apple Annie's. So you go and pick your own apples. They weigh them, but they also had apple cider
right from their orchards.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Wow.
It was a fun event. It was definitely an all-day, hot sun, worn out, fighting yellow jackets.
But then you got apple cider.
And they had their ice cream too. So they had vanilla ice cream with apple chunks, and
wow.
So they had a pretty cool setup. They're definitely a fun family thing. Kind of very similar to what we have here in Colorado when you get closer to like the Halloween. You go to the farms and pick up.
Pumpkins and all the different vegetables. We're starting to move into. We're doing this in the beginnings of the falls. It's in September. My favorite 3 months of the year: August, September, October.
Yeah, and so. The strange part, we should probably share a story.
Yeah.
But Colorado, living in Colorado, there's a saying in Colorado that says, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes, right?
Right.
So today and tomorrow we're hitting 98, 99, maybe 100.
Right up, bumping against 100.
And then Tuesday, we're expecting at least an inch of snow.
So all of our vegetables, they got to be covered or something. So Colorado, you get 99 degrees, drop to freezing snow.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure it's going to freeze. Maybe
39, 28 is the
good lordy. Okay, here we go.
So hey, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Steve and Steve Show. I'm Steve Walsh.
This is Steve Wastenberg.
Yep. If you're just finding us, thank you for pushing play and figuring out who are these characters.
Take the next step, which is subscribe.
Subscribe, that's right. We are just a couple subscribers away from hitting a goal. Once we hit that goal, we are actually going to do an investment into microphones.
Even though I'm sure you can hear us fine, you're going to hear us even better.
You'll hear me better.
Or Steve, a little better. I have a loud mouth. Yeah. But today we have an interesting one. We're going to look at a book that we've both read, but we're doing right now in a mastermind, and it is called the Cashflow Quadrant, and it's Rich Dad, which is Robert Kiyosaki. If you've ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which he's pretty famous for. This is a follow-up to that called the Cashflow Quadrant. And he introduces the quadrant in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but he really goes into it in this one. And we're going to talk about what is the Cashflow Quadrant and how all of us need to seriously know what it is.
So hold up the book so we can kind of show. So if you see here, there's the 4 quadrants, right? So you have an E quadrant and an S quadrant, and on the other side you have the B and the I quadrant. So we're gonna do a quick summary on those within this time limit that we set ourselves to, and just kind of give you a quick glimpse, I think, of it, and encourage you if you want to dig more into this. You have a couple options. You can go find the book, read it up on your own. It's available on Audible, all the bookstores,
and the
digital, hardware. Or you could reach out to us and let's just have a discussion around that, and how we can help you figure out, really understand, not from a knowledge standpoint, but from an experiential knowledge understanding.
Agreed. We get nothing for this, by the way. Robert didn't call us up and say, "Hey, we love the Steve and Steve show over here at Rich Dad Incorporated. Why don't you guys do a review of my book?" No, he didn't do any of that. He probably would if he watched the show, but we're just doing it because both of us really like this quadrant concept that he came up with, and so we want to talk about it. That's what we're going to do. You want me to launch and define what it is, or just tell what they are, or would you like to?
Let's do it this way. I'll ask you. Put the muzzle away.
Yeah, I don't. That's not even good.
Okay, so I'll ask you.
Masks are muzzles.
I'll ask you. Why don't we go through what's the E quadrant?
Okay, so the first quadrant, if we're looking at this, I'm drawing it on here. On the left-hand side of the quadrant, and in the upper left corner, that is the E quadrant. And E stands for employee. You are an employee in that quadrant. And I'd say probably 90% of the United States.
I don't know the exact number, but I would imagine it's close.
It's actually very close to that, according to Robert. It's basically fall into that E quadrant. It doesn't mean that that's the only place that people are, but most people have a job, right? And if you have a job, you are an employee.
Right. You get a W-2. You have someone else owns the company. It might be a big corporation, but someone else, basically, you have a manager. Even sometimes, even CEOs, if they're making, they might be making some good coin, but they, in a sense, are
an employee. Yeah.
Right.
So we'll actually go in. I think I'm going to ask you to break out.
Instead of CEO being Chief Executive Officer, we should call it Chief Employee Officer.
Yeah, Chief Executive Employee. That's really what they are. You're an employee CEO.
Unless they're the owner.
Unless they're Jeff Bezos, I guess.
Yeah, unless they're the owner.
All right, but we digress, which happens often. As we've said, this is raw. Second, you were going to ask me. I'll let you ask me.
Oh yeah. So what is an S?
S. I'm glad you asked. The S, if we're looking again at that quadrant, we're still on the left-hand side of the quadrant, and an S is below the E on there, so it's the lower left corner. That stands for self-employed. Now, somebody that's self-employed has their own business. They still are an employee.
This is why I don't think that 90% are employees. To fall in the E quadrant.
Well, actually, though, there aren't that many.
But I think
yes.
Well, no, but I think no. There actually, I believe there are more people in the S than we really allude to.
This is a topic for,
because if you think about it, there's real estate agents.
Right.
They would be in the S. Insurance agents would be in the S.
Yes.
A lot of different sales type guys are in the S. Attorneys are in the S.
Typically.
Most attorneys.
I don't know about most, but if you're a partner, you're in the S. But otherwise, if you're not, you're employed.
Right.
I know a lot of attorneys that are just
the family practice where it's one or two guys, those are S's, right?
Doctors, dentists,
right?
Yeah, no, there are a lot of
there's
S's
a lot.
out there.
That's why I think it's from when you look at employee and self-employed, then you're at the 90% on the. But I do agree that most are employees, not necessarily self-employed.
Okay.
But it's the combination is 90%. Maybe it's 80%.
May very well be. Yeah, I
Like
think you make a very good point. I'm going to concede that point and say if it is 90%, it's probably a combination somewhat of the left-hand quadrant of the employees and self-employed. Okay. All right, so we've got self-employed. You understand what a self-employed is? I think we kind of described here. It means you have a company, and you may have some employees in that company, but you also are an employee in that company.
Right.
What's the next?
So next would be crossing over to the right side of the quadrant.
The right side.
And the first one, or the top one, would be the B quadrant.
Tell us about the B, Mr. Walsh. What does it stand for?
So it stands for business.
Wait a minute. I have a business as an S. What are you talking about?
That's right. So Robert, he defines it in two ways.
3 ways.
Is it 3 ways
Yep.
he defines business?
3 ways.
Okay, you have to tell me the third one when I mix.
Probably will miss that because I forget it, but
Let's try. I'll mention the two that I know, and then you can throw in the third one. So, if you own a business and it has 500 employees or more, then that's kind of a big business, and most likely that business is could run on its own, right? It has managers when you get that level of employees.
just remember the third.
You threw me off.
Oh, the second network.
Yeah, the second is if the business could run without you for a significant length of time, right? So it doesn't have to have a big number of employees. It may have a handful of employees, but you could walk away and the employees that you have can take care of that business, right? So if you have let's say it's maybe it's some ice cream shop and you got a manager that manages it, and you could go on vacation for maybe 3 to 6 months, and that manager, you total trust it, they can run it, no big deal, right? So that would qualify in that B quadrant.
All right, well, I actually just finished this chapter again, so I'm going to actually fine-tune that. He's correct, but I'm going to fine-tune. The first, yes, 500 employees or more, and you are not necessarily tied to those 500 employees because you have people that manage your business. So it's not that you are, like in the self-employed, integral to the running day-to-day of this. You have managers that are managed. You have a president. You have an accounting group. You have all
structure
of that. You have structure there. It's a full-on system.
And there's processes, policies, procedures, there's systems in place for the business to run.
So the other one was more like a network marketing. If you've had a network marketing business, that network marketing business actually has a whole downline to it, and you at some point in there are no longer needed to be involved in it. So it runs basically whether you're doing something or not, because you've built a very large organization that keeps that flowing.
Right.
And finally, franchising. They talk about franchising something. So you've got a business. A key component of the B quadrant is having a system. He gives this great example.
Yeah, I think. So I agree with you on.
Well, you don't have to agree because I just read this. I can guarantee you this is right. And I'll take a bet on it.
No, I don't. I'm not disagreeing. But I like the example I gave you about the ice cream shop where it can run, right? If you have a manager, and what they're really doing is they're following a system.
The system is the key.
And
on B.
Right, and you have someone that's managing that system, and so you can actually. You own the business, but you don't have to work in the business.
Right.
And I think that's a key piece.
It is absolutely. And the key and the other component of that, which goes down the line of both franchising and having people that are running it and the leverage of all of that.
Yeah.
The component is from a self-employed, which is your business. You are so tied to that and so important. If you were to walk away, that thing ain't going to go any further. But on B side of thing, because you've set up a system, you actually could walk away and it would still run very smoothly with that system.
Right.
If I may, he gave this example that just really sticks with me. I'm going to ask you a question, Steve. McDonald's hamburger. Do you think at home you could make a better hamburger than McDonald's makes?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Those are pretty good hamburgers.
They are pretty good.
And you get one hamburger, you just slop that thing down. But you think you could make a better hamburger?
Yes.
You know what? I have to agree. I could make a hell of a lot better hamburger at home.
It would not be a McDonald's hamburger.
It wouldn't be a McDonald's hamburger, but I could make a better hamburger.
Right.
All right, so if I can make a better hamburger, hell, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start competing with McDonald's. Steve, is that a B mindset or an S mindset or an E mindset or something else?
I would think it's going to be on the employee, right? So on the left-hand side.
It's an S mindset,
Yeah.
right? Because
Either-
I really could go out and make a better hamburger and it'd be a heck of a lot better than McDonald's. Would I be more successful than McDonald's?
Not McDonald's in a whole.
No, I wouldn't
Right.
become close to
Right.
McDonald's.
But if you think about it, there are those restaurants.
Okay, we're not
That-
going into those. We're going to go down the rabbit hole if we do.
We are, but I want to point out that there are restaurants, and you can think of some, and I can point to one right now. There's a restaurant on top of Flagstaff Hill here, right, that never advertises.
The Flagstaff House.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay, well, it makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
So they never advertise, right? I don't know what kind of food they serve.
Fantastic, actually.
But they're not a franchise, but they have their own system within that company, right?
Okay.
But some guy started out with, I'm gonna create this restaurant and it's gonna serve this kind of food, it's gonna have this quality, right? And that, I would classify that as being a B, depending on where that.
Dude, you're blowing my story, okay? You're completely blowing my story. I'm going to go back to my story. I'm making this hamburger so much better than McDonald's. My mindset is self-employed. Because what McDonald's has that I don't have here is a system. Mine will never have a sign out front of it that says over 1 billion sold. Because I don't care what I do, my system is not there.
Yeah.
Now, you could say, yeah, but you could become Five Guys and do yeah, I could maybe take my self-employed, blend it over and create this incredible system and franchise that, and now I've got a business.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just make the drastic, so many people out there will say something like, man, I could do that so much better than, and you fill in the blank, X, Y, or Z. And you know what? You probably could, but you don't have the system that really will allow you to put the sign up that says over 1 billion sold. And that's the key
Yeah.
that McDonald's has. We better move on to the next
Yeah, we're
quadrant.
down. My mind's starting to crank on McDonald's, and we're probably
Yeah,
going down.
and I know how much you love McDonald's as a system.
I do.
love it too. I think they're an incredible system.
I went through McDonald's when I
Yeah.
was in high school, right? And that's where I learned my work ethic was you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
All right, well, so how about we'll wander back to McDonald's when we really talk a little bit more, but let's go to the next quadrant. What is the next, Steve, what's the next quadrant? So we're on the right-hand side, B is on the right-hand side. What's the next quadrant on the right-hand side?
The next quadrant is I.
Oh, and I say that I because, baby, I is where I want to be.
And I is not Steve.
It's not Steve. It's not Steve. It's not the Steve and Steve show. I is
Investment.
investment. We need to pause there. Because when you really work I, that is freedom. And aren't we?
Well, so let's talk about what
Let's
that
talk
is,
about that.
right?
Let's talk
So
about it.
because a business could
Wow, I'm really going through this, man.
be investment. I don't want.
No?
No, I don't want. It's all right.
He doesn't. That's
I
nothing against you, Martinelli.
Yeah, it's the apple juice. I can't drink a lot of apple juice.
Hey, we don't need to go too much information there. Let's, go ahead.
So investment, the idea behind the investment is instead of having employees, either you're an employee, you're a self-employed, or you own a business that has employees that's all working hard. in I, you have investments that are working hard. So this is where you get your
Amen.
money to work hard for you.
Baby, so here's the deal. I'm just going to go off of that and riff for a second, and then I'll turn it right back over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you can work for your money, or you can have your money work for you. That's not original.
So Steve, and Kiyosaki makes this distinction. There's the right side of the quadrant and the left side of the quadrant. What's the best side?
Right side, people.
That's right.
Republican. No, that's not. I didn't say the Republican.
The right side is the right side.
That's right. No, the right side of the quadrant, when you're looking at it,
is the B,
and the I. Why, Steve? Why is the right side of the quadrant better than the left side of the quadrant? Which, by the way, most of the United States is hanging out in the left side.
Because at that point, when you're in those two quadrants, you're leveraging either other people or other, I guess, assets, right? You're leveraging
OPT or OPM.
Well, but
other people's time or other people's money.
Well, it could be your own money.
He actually says that in this chapter. So.
Other people's money definitely is a leverage, but it could be your own money that you're investing, right?
Sure.
But it is that you're getting away from having to trade your physical time for compensation.
All right, so what does that really mean? So what do we have in a day? 24 hours, right?
Everybody does?
Everybody has 24 hours a day. Is that true?
Yep. Last time I checked, you can't trade.
Steve and I actually have unlimited amount of hours in a day. How is that possible, Steve?
You tell me.
He didn't know that. If you are on the B and the I side of things, you are actually taking what time you have, which is truly 24 hours of your specific time, and you're investing in thought that creates a leverage of that time, because lots of other people are using their time to expand your time that is only the 24 hours, or you've got money that is working very hard to give you more time to do other things. So, I mean, here's the point. When I'm an employee and I work 10 hours a day, those 10 hours a day are dedicated to my employer. And frankly, my employer's dream. Goals, everything that my employer, that company has, I'm dedicating that 10 hours to that.
Yeah, I only work half a day.
Don't tell your people that.
Well, half a day is 12 hours.
Yeah, so he's got 12 hours that he's working there at that, but he's dedicated to somebody else's dream. In a self-employed, it might even be more, right? You may be working, let's say you have a small bakery, or better yet, a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, and you serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Lord, you got the whole day that you're working there, and then in the late evening you got to supply and organize for the next day.
The self-employed person is the hardest working person, right? Out of all the categories, the employee is going to put his time in, clock into a system, clock out. At the end of the week, after he's put in 40
weekends
hours,
were made for Michelob.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But the self-employed, he's got, not only has he got his time that he's going to put in, he's going to work his tail off to make sure that there's success there, but most likely he's got money invested in whatever he's right. So a dentist has money invested in the business as far as the equipment and making sure payroll, if he's got like hygienists and stuff like that, all that's going to have to work, but the dentist still has to be there to work.
Or this doctor, she's got her office and maybe she's got her own deal, but the same thing, she's got some people that she's working with as employees, but she's got to stay in that nonstop. A salon owner, he or she is going to be completely.
Now, so is it bad to be E or S?
I'm not going to say. It's going to all depend on what your mindset is, right? Where do you want? Some people will say, well, you know what? I love my job, or I love my business, so all of my fulfillment really comes from doing these things on the left. And a lot of people will say that. I'm not exactly wired that way.
I think some people are happy being employees, and some people are happy being self-employed. Right, the dentist loves doing what he does. Employees, they just may be happy doing what they're doing. Maybe it's a school teacher loves to teach kids.
Yeah.
Right. So they could move into the B or I in the evenings or part time, and especially the I. If you think about what the I is stocks, real estate, currency. Right. They could, but what it does is on your time scale. When do you want to get to the point where you don't have to or want to be in the E or the S quadrant?
Which is locking you down to these hours that you're trying.
But if you look like let's play like a single person, because that's the easiest one. If you got a family, that makes things more complicated, or a spouse. But if you're single and you're single your entire life, right? You could actually keep your expenses down to minimal, and let's say it's 50%. You live off 50% of your income. You could take that 50% and put it into the I, and learn a lot about the I, the investments, and grow that. And so maybe you do 20 years as an employee, and after that 20 years, you let the I provide your income for you, and you can retire early.
Yes.
There's other people that look at that and say, oh man, I've been an employee for 20 years already, 30 years already, and I didn't have that luxury of being able to put 50% of my income into the I was only doing 5 or 10 or whatever it is, and it went through an employee retirement account, and it's not at a point where I could live off the income, right? So then we got to look at okay, well, you are where you're at. What's your goals? What's your timeline to get there? What I and the B do is it provides, if it's done right, it could provide an income for you to live off, more like a retirement type income. And so when you become financially wealthy, what that means is that you have investments working hard for you that exceeds your expenses. Then that's kind of that financial independence, right? And then you can basically go into kind of, I say retirement, but it's not really retirement. It's just you become more free from having to trade your time for compensation.
Right. So I would say that traditionally, a lot of people, and when I say traditionally, we're talking, let's say from around 1930s on, you had a pension. You were working to get a pension to be able to retire, and then you would, live out the end of your life in retirement. Most people, I think it's probably true to say that a lot of people don't think so much of retirement exactly the same way anymore. Pensions are gone. Mm-hmm. Now it's a 401k or an IRA, and we've seen how that 401k or IRA, they go up and down, and you start to worry about, well, do I really have some sort of a retirement? So the sooner, in my opinion, someone can start to initially get educated about especially the I. While the I may look like it's got more risk to it, and it probably has a component of risk that's larger than, say, getting a job. Well, the key is that in the I, you can start to generate the kind of income that will, in the beginning, augment what you're doing on the employee or the self-employed side, and in the end, replace it. So let's talk about that thing first. We've got 2 columns, and a lot of people don't think of this. You've got assets and liabilities, right? Or liabilities and assets, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the time when you think about liabilities, it's what your expenses are. It's the expenses that you have in a day. Steve, if you had $4,000 in expenses in what you were doing, and on the I side of things, you had $1,000 of an asset income, where are you at? You're still $3,000 down, right?
Yeah,
every month. Every month.
I would still be dependent on some sort of income that I would have to generate.
Well, what if you had 10 houses on the I side that are houses that you have, yes, they have some mortgages on them, but they have you have renters in them, and after all expenses, maintenance, and reserves, everything that you have to have on that, they're each generating $500 a month in income.
After all
of the expenses.
Right.
Now
so
what do you have?
$500 of cash flow is the correct term. So that would times 10, that'd be 5,000, right? My expenses were 4,000. So basically, you're saying is I would have my expenses taken care of, plus I'd have an extra $1,000, right?
Exactly. So it would change your lifestyle, but
yeah. So what I would do is I would change what I was doing on a daily basis. I may look at the rental properties that I have and try to build that as a full time.
Okay.
Right. So accelerate. So if I'm doing that in the evenings, on the weekends, to build it might take me over a long period of time to build that portfolio. But if I was doing full time to build that, I could accelerate that growth, right?
Right.
So that's what I would do.
Gotcha.
Build that income a little bit better. So I would trade it into become like kind of a self-employed.
Yep.
And build that portfolio out so that not only could I cover my expenses, but it could also provide an income where I can go explore the world.
Right. So now you got 20 houses, now you got 100 houses, and now you're getting like generational income starting to come in.
Right.
Because then you take that income that's well over your expenses and you start investing that in other areas, and you might even do a business then.
Yeah.
We got to start wrapping it up here.
We do.
But I think I would say, and Robert would similarly say that, look, at a minimum, get educated on these quadrants.
So it's increasing your financial IQ.
Absolutely.
So learning about either the B quadrant or the I quadrant, but learning that really if you want to get to a point where you can retire and have a comfortable retirement, then that time period could be, what you decide, what you need to do, but it could be a slow go. But when you get to retirement, you have some good investments going. Or if you want to accelerate that and get to where you're focused on living in the I at a young age, you could do that. So it just all depends. But your education, your financial IQ, like reading the Cashflow Quadrant, reading other books about stocks, real estate, maybe learning about business, all that, learning about systems, really, not just businesses. Because people go get a business degree. I have 2 business degrees, and none of them taught me about systems. I had to learn that on my own.
Right.
And so once you get into that, then you start to build those portfolios.
And the truth is, it doesn't mean, or does it, Steve? You don't need to go back to school, right? You need to go back and get a degree again.
Yeah, not necessarily the formal school, but you may need to take some classes, spend the money to get some real good education around financial
good
IQ.
Courses. And I think we do some coaching and stuff as well, so we can certainly get you pointed in the right direction. We probably ought to wrap this. And I'd summarize again saying, get your IQ, get your education, and you can do it in books. It's not a real expensive thing to begin on the B and the I.
And really, there's no wrong quadrant. It's just where
do you want to be?
How do you want to? Yeah, exactly. Where do you want to live, and how do you want to live when you get to the point where it's time for you to take a little bit of a relaxation and enjoy the different parts of life in the world more of time than going to work every day.
And frankly, if you enjoy being a slave to money, well, hey, just go ahead.
But they might be a teacher, and that there's a higher calling for teachers. I love teachers. Teachers are awesome.
I am not going to comment.
The right teachers are awesome.
I'm not going to comment on the public education system.
So, all right, Steve, I've got a little bit left, so thank you all for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe. Tell your friends, do the share, hit the likes, add a comment. And if you have a suggestion for a topic, certainly we'd love to hear about that too.
Absolutely. Y saludos a los latinos que están escuchando.
Salud.